Thanks for joining us for CBN News Today. I'm Heather Sells.
And I'm Ephraim Graham. President Obama is flexing his executive powers today, sidestepping Congress to take action on immigration. It is a move likely to spare millions of illegal immigrants from the fear of deportation. But as White House correspondent Jennifer Wishon explains, it's not a popular move.
Areli Ortega is a student at the University of Idaho. Her mother, Maria, picks potatoes and lives in the shadows as an undocumented worker.
It makes us both very emotional.
The Ortegas and other farm workers came to the White House to ask President Obama to include them in his executive order.
They do hard, backbreaking work, and they are deserving.
Congressman Gutierrez says Americans need to remember who harvested their meal when they sit down to feast with family next week.
Let's make sure that this Thanksgiving, Mr. President, the blessings are bountiful for millions upon millions of undocumented workers in this country.
The president posted this video from the Oval Office on Facebook to announce that we'll soon know what he plans to do.
So what I'm going to be laying out is the things that I can do with my lawful authority as president to make the system work better, even as I continue to work with Congress and encourage them to get a bipartisan, comprehensive bill that can solve the entire problem.
Under his executive action, as many as 5 million immigrants living in the U.S. illegally will likely be protected from deportation and made eligible for work permits. That number includes extending deportation protections to parents and spouses of citizens and permanent residents. They would not have a pathway to citizenship, though, and they wouldn't be entitled to receive federal benefits. White House officials say the president's plans are consistent with executive actions taken by other presidents, including President Reagan. But Republicans on Capitol Hill have suggested any unilateral action on immigration taken by President Obama could poison future opportunities for cooperation. And even though the president talks about acting within his lawful authority, critics say that's not true because he's going beyond the powers the Constitution gives him. Speaker John Boehner's spokesman says if Emperor Obama ignores the American people and announces an amnesty plan that he himself has said over and over again exceeds his constitutional authority, he will cement his legacy of lawlessness and ruin the chances for congressional action on this issue and many others. Speaker Boehner also took to social media, tweeting a list of 22 times President Obama, in his own words, said he couldn't act on the immigration issue on his own. And the president's executive action is not a popular move with the public either. A NBC News Wall Street Journal poll shows 48% oppose the president taking executive action on immigration. Just 38% support it. But support for a pathway to citizenship for people in the U.S. illegally remains popular, with 57% favoring it, 40% oppose it. It's an emotionally charged issue for sure. In an interview with USA Today, Oklahoma Republican Senator Tom Coburn says after the president's announcement, the country's going to go nuts because they're going to see it as a move outside the authority of the president. And it's going to be a very serious situation. You could see instances of anarchy. You could see violence. Regardless of how people feel, the president's move isn't permanent. In 2 years, the next president can do away with it. Only Congress can pass a law that offers true, lasting reform. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, the White House.
And joining us now with more is Reverend Tony Suarez with the National Hispanic Christian Leadership Conference. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We know some details, but not a lot of all the plans that the president could lay out tonight. What are you hoping for?
Well, they've been very tight-lipped with what they're willing to say about what they'll do or not do. We're hoping that it's going to help a lot of people. It doesn't make sense if it helps children but doesn't help parents or vice versa. So it has to be what we're calling common sense. And it's very important that everyone understands that we still need Congress to act, even though the president's taking executive action tonight.
It sounds like what you're really hoping for is family unity, because there's so many families that are broken apart by the system as it stands.
That, and really, as faith-based believers, that's been the issues, that children have been losing their parents, spouses have been losing their husband or their wife. This is about family reunification. This is about bringing families that love the Lord, that believe in the value of life and marriage, to keep them together in this country that they really genuinely love.
Now, of course, there's polling all over the place on this, but we know, of course, that the public is mixed on this issue, mixed on reform to begin with, mixed on how the president should respond. How concerned are you about that, and what are you hoping, how are you hoping the public will respond to the president's announcement?
I think there's overwhelming support for common sense immigration reform. Now, the president's action, that's made everyone a little iffy. They're nervous, but it's important that they remember this is temporary. Congress has the ability to pass a bill even today if they want to take a vote that would supersede anything the president does. So I don't look at this as the move of an emperor. I see this as a leadership move to give us something until we can take care of this all together.
So are you hoping that Congress will respond, or what are you hoping for post tonight?
Oh, I would be overjoyed if John Boehner would call for a vote. He has 6 different pieces of proposed legislation on his desk, and if he would vote on any of them, it would just take care of this problem. He could have done this any time in the last 6 years, and we wouldn't be where we are today.
Right. Now, you, of course, have been advocating for reform for years. What are some of the stories you've seen that have really inspired you to work so hard on behalf of reform?
Well, one of the stories is right here in Virginia Beach that impresses me. My friend Juan Daniel, who came the right way, has spent over $30,000, has been here for 11 years, and because two pieces of paper were not signed in his packet the right way, he was thrown to the back of the line. So this isn't just about quote-unquote fence jumpers or people that broke the law. This is about people trying to do things the right way, but in a broken system couldn't do it. And that's why there's people even like John Hewitt trying to help these people get it done the right way, right away.
All right, Reverend Tony Suarez, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Another incident involving security at the White House to tell you about. An Iowa man was arrested Wednesday after Secret Service agents discovered a hunting rifle and ammunition in the trunk of his car. He was parked roughly 1 block away from the White House. The man approached the officer saying someone had told him to drive to the White House. He made no threats, but his suspicious behavior prompted officers to search his car. The Secret Service is still reeling from the September incident where a man jumped the White House fence and made his way inside the West Wing.
3 students are wounded and a gunman is dead after a shooting at Florida State University. It happened early this morning in the school's library. Police officials say the gunman was shot and killed by police after they ordered him to put his weapon down. FSU President John Thrasher has canceled classes for the entire campus, but says the university will remain open.
Gaza militants are test-firing rockets. Israeli military officials say 4 rockets were fired in a 24-hour period. The rocket tests come amid escalating violence in Israel. Tuesday morning, 2 Palestinians brutally murdered 4 rabbis and a police officer in a synagogue. This summer, Israel and Gaza's Hamas rulers fought a 50-day war that claimed more than 2,000 lives. It broke out after Hamas fired hundreds of rockets at Israel following an Israeli roundup of Hamas activists in the West Bank. That situation was in response to the killing of 3 Israeli teens there. Rockets from Gaza now have the ability to reach Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and other Israeli cities.
Some say the U.S. military is now so hostile to religion, many believers in the ranks are afraid of mentioning their faith. Congress has specifically ordered the military not to suppress religious liberty. But there are enough cases of the military doing that this year that the House is now investigating. Paul Strand was there.
The hearing came amid charges from critics that those in command are becoming more and more hostile to troops' religious liberty.
What's ironic, at least according to testimony here, is that the men and women in charge of guarding our liberty may be the people in America most in danger of losing theirs.
Everything from a Christian officer who wrote an article about my faith has sustained me in my career, getting pulled from the newsletter, and at the same time, an atheist says atheism sustains me, and that's remaining.
And there are still ongoing situations in which service members telling the story of the faith and how their faith and how it impacts their lives in service are being suppressed.
Former Marine officer Michael Berry worries about the effect on recruiting.
And if we start to see religious liberty being stripped away from our military, I don't think you'll see anybody, regardless of their political affiliation, regardless of their patriotic streak or whatever it might be, they're not going to want to join an organization where their religious freedoms are not protected.
Michael Weinstein has been leading the charge on the other side of the argument, bringing many cases of what he considers religious favoritism to the attention of the military. He says what the other panelists overlook is the actions of overbearing, pushy Christians who intimidate others in the ranks. And he claims he's acting on behalf of religious freedom.
The people that they think are victims are the ones that are persecuting the Christians that we represent. We represent almost 40,000 members of the U.S. military and veterans, and 96% of our clients are Protestants, Roman Catholics that believe that they are being persecuted for not being Christian enough.
But others like Barry have a different view of religious freedom. They insist the Constitution mandates protecting every American's First Amendment rights, including the right to speak out about and act on their religious beliefs.
Of the many freedoms that our military give up, religious freedom is not one of them.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Capitol Hill.
A Louisiana school district is being threatened with a lawsuit if it fails to remove prayers from school events. The American Humanist Association recently sent a letter to school administrators in St. Mary Parish. It alleges that a Morgan City High School student complained about prayer during a Veterans Day assembly and warned that if the district does not take action in 7 days, the American Humanist Association would file a federal lawsuit.
A brutal snowstorm over Lake Erie has dumped nearly 6 feet of snow on Buffalo and claimed at least 7 lives. And around the country, extreme temperatures are the issue.
The pictures tell the story of a snowstorm that's epic even by Buffalo standards. Today, a second wave of heavy lake effect snow is pummeling the region with a total of 8 feet expected by Friday.
Winter knocked and let itself in.
When all is said and done, this snowfall may break all sorts of records.
The snowstorm is already blamed for at least 7 deaths. It has trapped hundreds of people on the highways and caught many in Buffalo by surprise.
Running out of snacks and drinks. Just trying to survive right now.
This week's stranded victims included the Niagara women's basketball team. They spent 30 hours trapped on their bus, melting snow to drink and posting selfies of their ordeal. The storm also created complications for little Lucy's birth.
2 pushes and out she came.
Lucy was born in a fire station after her mother was rescued at the height of the storm. And the Buffalo Bills are hoping that by Sunday, football will be possible. They're offering $10 an hour and free game tickets in a quest to find 500 hardy shovelers. The goal, clear 220,000 tons of snow from the Ralph Wilson Stadium. For the rest of the country, it's still freezing cold. Temperatures have shattered records from the Gulf Coast through New England, but warmer temperatures are on the way.
Believe it or not, all 50 states registered below freezing at one point this week, even Hawaii, which dipped down to 31 degrees.
And coming up, the family and congregation of Dr. Myles Monroe is standing strong in the face of tragedy. Up next, we'll hear from ministry leaders about the church's future. Believers across the world are still mourning the sudden loss of Dr. Myles Monroe after a deadly plane crash last week. The crash killed Dr. Monroe, his wife, and 8 others, including an unborn baby. Last week, his son, Myles Monroe Jr., read a powerful statement on behalf of his family. Let's listen to some of it.
I know there are many questions as to how or why something like this would be allowed to happen to such great individuals. But still, God is in control. I would like to make it known that although we are grieving our losses and are deeply saddened by this tragic event, we have never been, nor will we ever feel hopeless. So let's not mourn. Let's not mourn their deaths, but let's celebrate their lives and find joy in knowing that although God may not explain himself, he will reveal himself.
CBN News spoke to leaders at Bahamas Faith International Ministry. In an interview with our Mark Martin, Pastor Dave Burrows talked about how the ministry is coping with the loss and what's ahead for the ministry.
Well, I always say I don't have answers, but I have assurances. The reality is, if there were a single answer to any tragedy, it would have been written in a book somewhere. But the reality is that there's no answer, no specific answer for tragedy. We have what we need to go forward because he taught us. He taught us how to implement a vision. He taught us what the vision is. And so it's up to us now to take the lessons from the teacher and put them into practice. Because if we only are recognized by theory, then we're not genuine. So this is the opportunity, this is the unfortunate opportunity to take all of the lessons and everything related to the vision and put it into practice.
The funeral services for Dr. Monroe and his wife are scheduled for early December. For more details on those services, head to cbnnews.com.
A global summit on marriage has just wrapped up in Rome. The Vatican hosted the event, inviting leaders from many religious traditions. One of those leaders is Dr. Russell Moore, who heads the Southern Baptist Convention's Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission. Dr. Moore told CBN News via Skype from the Vatican that he agrees with the Pope. Children have the right to grow up with a mother and a father.
It's a global gathering of religious leaders from virtually every tradition and from virtually every continent to come together and to say we disagree on all sorts of things, theological and political, but we agree that manhood and womanhood are not interchangeable and that children need both a mother and a father. I think the first thing that churches can do is to articulate what the Bible teaches about marriage. We can't just assume that people understand that now. We have to stand up and teach Ephesians 5 and teach Genesis 1 and 2 and teach what Jesus has taught about marriage, and then to create communities within our churches that prepare people for marriage, which doesn't mean starting with premarital counseling. It means starting with children's Sunday school, to teaching what marriage means and why it matters for everybody, and then to create cultures within congregations that equip marriages in crisis. And that hold couples accountable to their vows. I think that's the most important step that we can take.
Evangelical Pastor Rick Warren was also invited to that conference. He leads Saddleback Church in California, one of America's largest Protestant churches. He urged everyone to be true to the Bible's teachings on sex and the definition of marriage as the union of a man and a woman.
Up next, taking stock in Israel, how Christian investors are helping Arab and Jewish believers start small businesses.
Israel is proving to be a great place for business. That's the message being shared with Christian owners and investors from abroad.
CBN Israel has been working to create opportunities in the Holy Land, helping Messianic Jews and Christian Arabs start their own businesses. Chris Mitchell has that story.
More than 150 local believers joined nearly 40 foreign investors in Jerusalem recently for the Israel Business Forum. Yoel Shoshani is executive director of CBN Israel.
So the ultimate vision of what we're doing here is to really see the local believers grow and improve in their economic stand. We want to see business develop.
The Bible says that God will bless those who bless the Jewish people. Many business people are now coming to Israel and discovering new ways to do just that. Mordecai Wiseman of Israel First Fruits Center for Economic Advancement joined CBN Israel to make this event happen.
But when you come here and you see the sites and you meet the people and God speaks to you, touches your heart, something changes. And a lot of the investors just talk about recognizing that God is doing something new in them. It's not just about writing a check, it's about engaging fully.
There's great opportunity here for any investor, but I think more than just the opportunity, the quality and the caliber of the people here in Israel, it's worth investing into. And to top it all, I mean, you're investing into a land that God very much cares for.
Chris Morales has a photography business based in Germany. He says he wants to be a testimony that God's ways work even in business.
You can be honest, you can have integrity, and you can be profitable and successful, all while following God's principles.
Evan Lieberman is an Israeli investment consultant.
The Bible
indicates that there's a great prosperity that's going to happen to Israel at some point. We're already seeing the first 60 years of the growth. It's phenomenal, not just from growing a nation, but growing the economy, growing businesses.
Software CEO Najd Assam is a Christian Arab from Nazareth.
The biggest value I see is to bring healing and unity to the body of Christ in the Holy Land through business.
Assam says when believing Israeli Jews and Arabs sit together to learn about business, they come to know each other on a personal level.
They know that there is a common thing between them more than just being Israelis, which is the love of Jesus Christ, and it brings them closer and closer together and reduces the gap that is created by media, by news and other means.
Shoshani says he wants to challenge Christian businessmen and others from abroad.
Come, experience, learn, and ask the Lord what your involvement needs to be.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
And finally today, Superbook's Gizmo made a grand appearance recently at a major cultural event in Thailand.
The Yiping Festival is one of Thailand's most significant celebrations. This year, CBN participated by entering Gizmo in the floating lantern contest. Gizmo appeared in the form of a 36-foot-high giant lantern made of 300 pieces of paper. So far in Thailand, more than 8,500 children have heard the gospel message through Superbook tours, camps, and other events, and through the weekly Superbook broadcast on television. To learn more about what CBN is doing around the world, log on to cbn.com/international.
Great event. Great that they're in Thailand.
Way to go, Gizmo.
That's it for now on CBN News Today. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues that you care most about at cbnnews.com.
We want to hear what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do it on Facebook or at CBN News on Twitter. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. It's Thursday. Make it a thankful one.